Welcome back. We are into part 2 of our CPT sales and marketing series, Ask Me Anything. Today, we're going to pick back up with marketing. Okay, so when it comes to marketing, I think just like sales, it's pretty simple. We want to make sure that we are always, no matter where we're at in our career, increasing our marketability. So whether that's going to come from skills, certifications, and trainings, and how we use them and present them, or other skills that are not direct to our field, but kind of more tangential, they're all really important. So the big areas that we're going to talk about in making sure that you are maximizing the way that you are presenting your existing knowledge, skills, and experience: SWOT analysis, market research, preparing for success, how to get yourself set up. And then we're going to talk a little bit about SEO versus on-site marketing. Okay, so I am very big. Everyone knows that I work in continuing education, and I love it. I really love developing it. I love the impact that it has, but there is the whole other side of it, which is the marketing side. So this is where we're not concerned with the content, the education, the skills acquired, but what are we able to convey to potential clients and partners by possessing those specialty certifications? So it's both things: the perception and effective communication. I think like the big thing is going to be, I hear people say all the time, if I just had more time, if I just had more time to pitch. And yes, but it's never happening, right? I think people's attention span is continuously decreasing. So we need to know how to pitch ourselves effectively when we have a split second to do it. So let's look at some of these titles. Let's say that you are a personal trainer and you happen to work with a lot of special populations, medical conditions. Think of how long it took me to say that sentence versus if I say I am a medical fitness specialist. 3 words: effective communication. I am a senior fitness specialist. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm a stretching coach, a mobility coach. I'm a certified yoga teacher, a fall prevention specialist. I'm silver sneakers certified. So all of these, like, we want to really think about how it lands when we say that. And so a lot of times, like, yes, you're paying for the education, but also think about, like, really think strategically when you're picking your CEUs for the next cycle, because you want it to work for the marketing. Okay, so medical fitness specialists, this is a big one. We're going to talk about this a lot. That's why I have it highlighted. That's going to be coming up more in the context of like what are really good opportunities that exist right now if you want to expand or advance your career. I just think that is very effective. So of all of these aren't all of my certs, but I wanted to list the ones that I end up to use. Now, I also wanted to say it like this. This isn't like a one size fits all presentation. So depending on who I'm talking to, I might say I am a medical fitness specialist, right? But if I am talking with, like, say that a professional athlete reaches out to me because they have had an injury. Well, of course, I'm going to lead there with corrective exercise specialist, performance enhancement specialist, all of those kinds of things. Like medical fitness specialist doesn't make sense there. Behavior change specialist, think about the situations where that would work. Other ones that are really good for marketing, things that will go to that niche market: pregnancy, mind body, concept 2, the bar certification that I do reference a lot. And then one story that I wanted to tell, the reason that I have TPI highlighted here too. So this is very interesting. So think of, like, if you're in the beginning of your career, this is where you have to kind of like scrap and claw to try to get opportunities. And you might be a phenomenal trainer. You might be the best trainer the world has ever seen, but you're still kind of unproven. So what happens over time is that it starts to slowly shift where people are going to come to you, where it's kind of like your reputation precedes you and you earn that. And it is earned and it's deserved. So having already reached that point, once I got into strength and conditioning programming for college golf teams, I liked it. I really liked doing it. And I had several golf certs already. I think ACE and NASM. But the first question, like, out of everybody's mouth, do you have TPI? I cannot say how many conversations started with, do you have TPI? Do you have TPI? And it's kind of like I was like getting back in a time machine where I had to say, well, no, but like, do you not know, like, what I have accomplished and what my certifications are? So anyway, what I realized was very quickly of like, okay, if I could say yes to that question, that opens the door. There is not this having to prove it. So then I ended up to get TPI for that reason and loved it, absolutely loved it. So anybody that's into my kind of thing, like biomechanical analysis, measurable power output, if you are work with athletes a lot, TPI, even though it's mostly for golf, but it's really for any rotational sports. Okay, and then you can also be talking about this with professional memberships that you have, associations that you belong to. Make sure that you are always sharing those things to the max of your ability, not overloading people with them. So like, look at this whole list here. I would never include this whole list to somebody. It would just depend on who the audience was. But sometimes the professional memberships are really good to market. So like we just talked about, it varies with the audience. If you're working with an athlete versus an older adult, you're sharing very different credentials. I don't think it's in any way deceptive, because we're just choosing to highlight a different aspect of our experience. So also think about this though. Pretend we're going to be getting into medical fitness. The way that you're going to be talking and what you're pitching to the doctor or the healthcare provider is very different than you would be to the person that owns the facility, that manages the facility. So I think what we present and how we present it is going to be very different. We just want to make sure that what we are displaying, how we are displaying it, is effective. And this is really good news for in our field, that very rarely do people ask about other degrees. So I think I have one area that I have found people to be pretty insecure is if they are in our field and they don't have a bachelor's degree. It very, very rarely matters or is even going to come up. So I think be confident in what you have. And also know this, that the professional certification level that the CPT is on is considered above a college degree. So even if you don't have one, don't let that get in your own head. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what you do have. So I think whatever you want to do, know what skills are desired and are valued. So whether we're applying for a new job, we're trying to pitch a new program, whatever it is, know what skills are desired by the other side, so that we know what are the strengths of our own that we should be highlighting and showcasing in that situation. Here's a big thing. This is one thing that I find myself telling people a lot nowadays. You probably have skills that you don't see as a skill, maybe because they come easily to you, they come naturally to you, whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that they're not a skill, and it doesn't mean that they're not valued. Okay. So like a lot of, let's say that you're in your 20s and you're a trainer and you just kind of somehow came up in this world where you give people full attention. You are always on time. You're reliable. You respond to communication promptly. You might be like, well, yeah, isn't everybody like that? No. The answer is no, 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 no. And that is like a huge no. Having done so much hiring with that generation, that is a huge 100% no. So if you have those things, start to see them as a skill, start to see them as a gift. It is something that you should absolutely communicate, because it is definitely to your advantage. So that's why I say be aware of the common weaknesses in others. It's not like we're looking at others as our competition. It's just knowing that if you are in Gen Z, people are going to have preconceived ideas about your habits and your behaviors and your personality and all this stuff that may or may not be true. But especially when they are not true, be aware of what people might be perceiving so that you can clear that up before they even set their opinion of you. The other thing here is that there's like a lot of tangential skills. So one thing that I help people with when they are applying for like their first job and they don't have a lot on their resume is how to present and maximize the benefits that you can communicate from other things that you have done. So especially like for a lot of people, it's going to be sports experience or other jobs that are unrelated to the field, but that taught you skills that will apply in this field. I wanted to just talk about this path for me to show you how things that were like this was never the goal, but it just happened because I had the right skill set. So I got on a school board when my daughter was young. I loved it. And then I got on the library board because I just wanted to be on another board. And then I, of course, the president of my own corporate board. So having all of that experience, I was the finance officer, and we're talking now public finance, state run things, and like a lot of other skills. But through that, I got trained in policy writing, studying operations and strategies, My background just in the sciences also included a lot of technical writing. We already talked about the public health education. So I've worked on both sides of this, a lot of experience in management and ownership. I've always just done curriculum development, and then especially for college courses. So all of that together, when the position opened up for certification director, which is the highest position in our field, they approached me because I have all of these, I think, like seemingly disparate skills that were necessary for this one position. So I think no matter, like, I guess what I'm saying is, whatever you're interested in, see if there's a way that you can build more skills or make yourself more marketable for our field. Okay, so networking versus connections. I've never really been a big like intentional networking person. I'm not against it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So if that works for you, then that is great. More about like just when connections arise authentically. I'm really into that, and then building and maintaining those relationships. But so we have the word leverage here, and I like to be really cautious with this because I think it is this, but we also want to make sure that we don't present it in a way that seems like we're using other people. But I think like here's the sequence that I wanted to include here. So when I started teaching at Penn State, I always knew that I wanted to teach, like in addition to getting into our field, that I wanted to teach on the college level. But what happened was the place that I was teaching just a qigong class, just a qigong class and the membership, and it was a phenomenal facility. So I just wanted to have my membership there. There's a connection there to Penn State. So when Penn State was looking for someone to hire in the Health Matters department, then that's where they reached out to. So it's like, that was not my goal, but that was my foot in. And then, teaching at Penn State for 5 years was really helpful. Alvernia is another university in Pennsylvania. So when I lived in Pennsylvania, I got in there, and here's how. I took materials to a bunch of retirement communities, and we're going to talk about this more in the next one. And it took a long time, but one started. Once one started, then word got around because it was the way that we do our job. People notice and they talk. So then all of the other places that were not interested the first time that I pitched, they started coming to me. So 1 becomes 10. And then, like we talked about a little earlier, one branch, like say that it's somewhere that has multiple locations. Once it's going well at one place, they want you at all of them. So it's going to naturally spread that way. And these are the kind of things where it starts with the residents, but when you're having these programs for the residents, the staff are there. They're seeing it. They want it too. So it's just a natural expansion. So from that, then they approached me at the Alvernia Seniors College, and I did a lot of program development there and really enjoyed that. But that's what opened the door for me to then teach a credit course at Alvernia. So I think basically what I want to say is just be patient. Like, make the smartest choices that we can and kind of see where you're trying to go, but know that it does take a little bit of time. No matter how good we are, it's going to take a little bit of time. And again, this idea of here, for when it was a new opportunity positioned itself, how you're talking about the program varies, right? Whether it's going to be the fitness director, the management, like a professor, whoever it is, that we want to be thinking intentionally about what we say. Okay, so now if you're new to SWOT analysis, this is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I think there's a different way. I've seen a different way that people say it now, because there's one word here that I think has fallen out of fashion. Maybe it's the threats one. But in any case, no matter what letters we pick, it's still the same kind of thing. So for me, this is important. This is like a know thyself thing. So I like to do this. I do a major one at the beginning of the year, and then quarterly just kind of follow up and see where everything's at. It's just maybe, if you're not someone who does this, training yourself to start to objectively, right, distance from those feelings, analyze where you're at. So the strengths part, great. The weaknesses and opportunities, that's the big one, right? And I don't even know how much the threats are. Like, I don't really factor that into my planning too much, but it's more so about the weaknesses and the opportunities of like identifying these gaps and areas that we need to get stronger. And this doesn't just mean technical information. This doesn't mean training stuff. This can also be the personal things. So say that you're somebody that really struggles with a sales rejection, study it. Then like that can become the focus for you. One thing that I put under the threats, like I think everybody has their own opinion, and it really is, it's wild how varied they are. But I see AI as kind of a combination of an opportunity and a threat. But I think time-wise, we're fine in our field. It's going to be a while until somehow we could be replaced. Okay, so let's say that you work at a facility that has limited equipment. You can just lament that, right? Or you could say, okay, let me really dive into studying how can I accomplish the same strength outcomes with alternatives, right? So it's like wherever we can identify the problem, then that is the biggest step that we need to do in order to be able to find the solution to that problem. Another quick example I wanted to give there, power training. And I don't mean powerlifting. I mean power training where it's going to be the kind of things like Olympic lifts where it's a product of strength and speed, where if we don't have the specialized equipment that is going to do like measure like the bar velocity, then it's not saying, well, we just don't have that. It's figuring out how to do this. And one of the cool workarounds that I have found there are these timed lifts where you can figure out, you already have your weight set, so you can figure out how fast the bar should be moving, and then you're going to do the set. It's going to be, we have to complete this many reps in this amount of time. Okay, so that's like a fun workaround there. Anyway, there's always ways. So I think no matter where we're at, it's just accepting that and then learning that everything can be about learning, that we have less, that we're bogging ourselves down with, like maybe guilt or discomfort or something, and just kind of see these things a little bit more objectively as problems that if we can improve with X, then the whole thing will move forward. So that's why I like to do these small actionable steps, just like we do with our clients. Like it really is like, I think we are people that are wired for really good kind of self-development because we're already in this field for a reason. So one book that I like to share, so I'll share this with some hesitation. It's a good book that in the sense that when you have clients that have a lot of fear, or maybe if you yourself do, and you're new to this of like trying to figure out how to systematically work through something, it's a good book that way. So it's a good book for like helping you to set up the technique. I don't feel like it's a particularly well-written book. So there's always like that. I'm not sure how much I want to recommend this, but I do have a lot of clients that have felt like it was very helpful, but I did preface it with that of like, it's just not, it reads fine though. I mean, it's not like, it's a simple book. Okay. So let's move into market research and strategy development. So I think also no matter where we're at all the time, we should be taking an inventory of what is our product, what's happening in the field, what's happening with our competition. I was on the fence about saying anything about ChatGPT. I think it's pretty contentious. I am somebody who likes to really use it very strategically. So I'm not someone that believes that, children should be doing this in place of homework. But for us that are already in the field, things like, and I don't put my name in or any of that. So I am one of those people that is very, let's say, conservative about what is shared with it. But in general, like, does this wording work? Is there a more effective way to word this? What are typical conversion rates for these types of sales? In my field, what are other people doing? So that you kind of have a baseline of comparison to know what to do. So I think it makes market research so much faster because a lot is there. Now, we have to a certain extent, I think, trust, because it's like, if you're not going to do more research, then you have to just kind of trust it. So for things that I don't need a definitive answer, that's what I'll use it for. But I do know I have so many CPT students that will tell me when ChatGPT gave a different answer, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's wrong. I can tell you why it's wrong. But just remember, this thing is programmed by humans. So if humans make mistakes with the data entry, then it's got to be wrong. But the other tip that I have found to be helpful is like, keep asking follow-up questions. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So just kind of like when we do root cause analysis with our clients, you want to do that. See how much you can get out of it. But whatever you come to, everything for me always comes down to this one-page document, because this is how you can sell effectively, but this is also how you can communicate effectively. I run a lot of meetings and I like the meetings to be efficient. So I like, we have, important that we cover everything that needs to be covered, but that we're going to do it in a way that really is succinct and manages time well. And it just forces people to be prepared, including ourselves. Like, how do you, without a ton of excess, communicate? So yeah, that's something that can be studied, or just reach out to me if you want help with that. But I really like one-page documents or spreadsheet. Okay, so now let's say we're clearer on how we're going to sell. We are clearer on how to market ourselves. What do we need to do to get set up for success? A big thing that I have found is that people do not like resumes. They don't like writing cover letters. They don't like going to interviews. So they kind of avoid it. Very much like the CPT exam. I find that if you want to really reach a high level of success, it is the opposite that is going to be the most helpful. Lean into it. So do mock interviews. That's something that I do with consulting clients all the time, where you can learn to get comfortable, fluid, dynamic. And the biggest thing here is in control. That with interviews, I wanted to give an example here of somebody that I helped with interviewing that is not even in our field. So it was somebody who was really well accomplished in his respective field and then was applying at the best place in the world and should have gotten the job the first time, should have gotten the job the second time, didn't. And then, we were discussing this and I said, okay, well, it doesn't make sense because, you were the most qualified. So tell me what happened with the interview. And it was, well, they asked these questions. I said, what did you say? Oh, well, then I had to answer this way. I said, that's our problem. That you need to go into this knowing here are the big points that I want to convey so that you're going to really be organized and intentional. And it has to come out in a very natural delivery, but that no matter what they ask you, you're going to find a way to touch on all of those things. So the third time he did that, got the job. So yeah, and I just find that people that I coach with this do really well in interviews, and it's so nice. Like, I love doing this, especially with young people, because then they just get over that. They get past that, and interviews kind of become an enjoyable thing moving forward. Okay, so resumes, knowing what to include. A big thing that I really like to help people see is the perspective of the person that's hiring, not what you're including. What is this going to be perceived as from the other side? Why is that of value? So then that way, the resume, but probably doesn't change much, but it can change a little bit for every type of job. We already talked about like athletic experience, even your own training, unrelated fields, how to weave all of this stuff in when you need to fill up space, how to word it, effective layouts. So having received, it's definitely in the thousands of job applications, I know immediately, like my experience is that within 5 seconds, I know if I'm going to seriously consider someone or not. It doesn't mean that it's a yes, but everybody that's a no, I know it right away. But one thing that I have found, or that has changed over time for the better, is like these really nice layouts now that are very clean, sleek, streamlined, sometimes a little bit of pictures that you can update this. I think if you're not somebody that knows how to do that already, that's a really good update that's worth making. Now, cover letters, they have kind of fallen out of fashion, but I think that they by including a cover letter, it's going to make you stand out because, again, people, I think, should be doing this everywhere, and they're not. So it is an opportunity to direct their perception of you, right? This is going to be the first impression. So now it's not just words on a page that try to communicate what tasks you've done, what degrees you hold. Like, it's not that. It's you, right? This is their first exposure to you, like really genuine, authentic you. So I think even if you only make small changes, it's important to customize and include a cover letter with every application. Okay, so we have actions and outcomes, right? Where with this, we want to know what are we striving for, right? We need to really be clear with ourselves that the clear goals, set them up as SMART goals. That's important. And I think enjoyment should always be a part of this. Like, even if we know we have to do something that's going to have some downsides, is this the best option, right? In terms of us liking our job the most. So we go there. What are the steps? So it's probably going to be the resume, the cover letter, and then we come back to our communication cadence of, okay, I sent this, I'm going to follow up this day, I'm going to follow up this way, all of that. And then we have our planned responses. So I think if we plan this stuff ahead of time, this again helps to minimize the emotions taking over, where, okay, I might get the job, I might get to the final interview and not get the job, I might this, right? All of these different things, where if this, then this. If I reach out with pitching this new plan to one organization and I don't hear back, then I go to the next one. Or maybe I start with 10, like those kinds of things where we are already thinking ahead of time, where failure, I think, is going to be perceived in reality instead of emotionally, where let's say that, only 5%, 5% would be high, would go for the new proposal. Then it's just a numbers game, right? We need to do 20. And maybe in those 20, it didn't work, but we learned something. So when we do another batch, that's going to be enough. Okay. So one thing I want to talk about too, like this is the part where it is about each of us individually. So defining our own parameters. I think like we really need to have very clear visions of what is and is not acceptable. And I don't mean this in the sense of like morality kind of things. I mean in terms of like your time. so that you can shape your plan around that. Because like I really enjoyed working on the gym floor, but I also knew that I wanted to get out of there because the downsides of that drove me crazy. So key areas to assess with anything new that we're thinking about doing or with what we're currently doing. How much time does this take? How much time do we have available? What are the benefits? Especially financially, it's like, is this going to be something where we could be really successful? And that's why we're taking the shot at it, right? That it might have like a varying degree of success, right? So that our rate, it can fluctuate depending on the success. That's kind of the way I think about a lot of opportunities. Do we need predictability, right? Does it need to be set hours? And what's the trade-off of that going to be? A lot of times that's going to be a lower hourly rate. Risk versus time requirement, right? So again, a lot of these other things are going to be, the higher risk things are going to take more time, but they do have the potential to pay off in the way that a lot of the predictable opportunities do not. Scheduling. What is scheduling going to be? What is your schedule like? What kind of demands are on your schedule outside of work? How flexible are you? So it's just like thinking about, there's a lot of opportunities that could come our way that's going to be like, oh, this would be a great opportunity, but it's just not going to work for me right now because of this. So I think if we can start thinking about these in this really organized way, then it helps us process opportunities better. And how does everything that comes up connect to our long-term goals, which can change, but 1, 5, 10 years from now. So I wanted to just kind of give an example of, like, let's go to the second one here first. When you're establishing your career, and this was my experience with it, it's a very chaotic schedule. There's a lot of financial pressure. It is the main priority in your life. It is also super fun and exciting, right? And you're in the field that you want. But I found that highly motivating to take the next steps because of the negatives of that. So after that, then I started to do the streamlining things where it's like it took a year or two, but I was always aware of what position am I in? What position can this move to? Where the goal was a couple things: start making a higher rate, but then decrease my availability to these partners so that it's going to be like, okay, you're giving me a shot. I'll be there whenever you want. But now I've been here and it's going really well. So in the next semester, the next year, whatever it is, my schedule's not going to work the same way. Would it be possible if we worked in this window of time? So that, like, having that streamlining of the schedule will give you time to build whatever you want, or time to not work, depending if that's it. But I think building into something that can then generate more revenue, more consistency, whatever it is, whatever you're looking for. But just know that whenever we're going to be building, either we need to have money saved up to cover the cost of building, or we have to keep working to pay the bills and then do that work unpaid on top of it. That's what a lot of my experience has been. Okay, so I think where it's at now, like, I'm either working or I'm kind of working. There are very few times in my life where work isn't an option, at least I would say. I work non-consecutive hours. I pick what I want to do and I pick the hours. So that is very important for me. I do a lot of like a very varied tasks, which I love. I also found like this is important for me. I can't do the same thing every day. I like to have a lot of variety, and I really only pick things now that are impactful, where I feel like it can reach a lot of people. So it's meaningful work, has a lasting impact, and I also enjoy it. So I have reached the point where I can do these things, right? So that's the plus, the pros and the cons. So I'd say what I do now is very enjoyable, but it is also hard because there is a lot happening between my non-work schedule and the work schedule. So it has to be a very intentional management of time, really efficient. There's not like, I don't even understand it when people talk about being bored or like sitting down and watching TV shows and stuff. It's just so far removed from my existence. The other thing is that it always has to be self-motivated. So I think, it's not for everybody, right? So like if you're a person that has a hard time doing that, then working remotely probably, may not be something you want to even consider too much, or work on the self-motivation. Okay. So having this varied schedule and being able to set the schedule whenever I want allows easy accommodation of non-work events, of family events, of life things. So I think like the remote work pros and cons, good and bad, really great for traveling, these kinds of things, allows me to prioritize family. So, there are, I think it's mostly pros for me. And the way that things are set up is like, sometimes it is hard, right? Like sometimes it is very hard where your day is scheduled so much, and it's intense work, and it's very mentally demanding. So it's like if you have a day where you don't feel great about doing it, it's hard. But I think also like one thing that helps me is like these aren't the only options. There are other choices, but something would have to give that matters to me more. And that's why, you kind of choose to take it on. So I think no matter where we're at, there's going to be pros and cons. And I think it's just really good if we can kind of keep that perspective and again that little bit of distance where we see that there always would be. We could always go into another field. I would like if I had to sit at a desk 40 hours a week, I would lose my mind. Okay, so jumping to a different topic now. So let's say that you have all this stuff cleared up. Now you're ready to propose something. Some tips here. Minimize the risk for the other party. So I think a lot of people are again like focused on their self, thinking, here's what I want, here's what I can do, here's what I can bring, but they're not thinking about how the other end is going to be receiving this. So I think if we can minimize their risk intentionally, they're going to like that, they're going to appreciate that, it's going to increase the likelihood of a deal. But everybody also then is invested. So it creates room for advancement. It's not like we're limiting ourselves. It's going to create room for advancement after you prove your value. So think of the example that we just gave, where it's like, okay, I will be there whenever you want. As long as we get this going, I will accommodate your schedule. But then once everybody is on board and they want you to remain a part of that, you are seen as an integral piece of the puzzle, then you can start to say, okay, let's discuss a raise or let's discuss scheduling, all of those things. So if you're not comfortable with that, then put that on your SWOT analysis and get there. Study and practice the art of negotiation. But I think here's one big thing that I would recommend so strongly. This is one of my top tips, especially for Gen Zs. Only ask what you believe you deserve. So you don't want to, it's not good for anyone. If you kind of are in this situation where you see somebody as like kind of doing a favor for you or taking a risk on you, if you think that you're qualified for the position, even if you haven't filled the position yet, even if you don't have that direct experience yet, but you believe that you can do it, then just think about the other side too, because it's often that perception happens when you're not seeing something. So it's like maybe you're starting at a really low rate. Well, for that person, that's great, right? Because then they are able to, keep the budget down a little bit. So I think just know that it's going to be mutually beneficial. And that if you see it that way, eventually there's going to be a negative connotation there. So this applies to everything, initial contracts that you sign, and then also raises. So, if you believe that you deserve that, then you can appreciate it, of course, and we should, when our hard work is recognized and rewarded. But at the same time, if you believe that you deserve it and that you have earned it, then don't ever perceive it as a favor. Okay, another thing is like this team mentality. So I think whenever you're going to be working with other people, even if it's just in a gym facility, it's still a team. So be clear on the shared goals of the team and each team member's contribution toward them and make it vocal. So I like team meetings. I like things to always be connected to the big picture. And I think also like kind of position yourself to shine when these future positions open up. So think of the example that I gave for getting in at Penn State. That was not even applying. I didn't even apply at Penn State. It was because I was doing a good job just teaching a Group X class at a really reputable facility that then, the director was able to confidently recommend me when I said, yes, I am interested. So I think like look for smaller opportunities that are going to sell your skills well, that are going to put things on a resume, like you become a subject matter expert, this kind of thing. In leading the certification council, one thing that I really like is that, I am big into keeping minutes for a meeting where they're going to be more detailed, because it's not just to document what's happening. It's for in the future, if we need to come back and look at those, we need enough info there that it makes sense, that it's not just like, oh yeah, we talked about that, but what was said, right? You want detailed records. So one thing that I really like is that somebody on the council, like the council embraced this. So as a team, we're all thinking about what we're doing right now, but the day will come when their positions are over, when I will not be serving that position anymore, and that we think of what somebody on the council called the future us. That when the future us, when somebody else is in this position, that we want to think about this entity as something not from our own point of view, but as what we're able to achieve collectively. Okay, and then we have all right, so I'm not going to be saying too much about SEO. I think so much exists on that already. One thing that I will caution on is, if you're not aware of it, what happened in the last couple of years of like this dramatic collapse of the credibility scores on Google. So people that relied on like all eggs in one basket on their ranking on Google, and then Google upended the algorithm. Like this can happen anytime. So I think I like the idea of master whatever platform you're going to be working on. Like, so don't like the answer isn't to be doing 10 different things at once, but I think the answer is to do it smartly in a way that is going to be like a little bit more insulated from these algorithm overhauls. So building that score up through other channels, things that aren't going to be that Google doesn't have that like stronghold on. So things like backlinking, I think just kind of taking that approach to SEO is one of the tips I have there. But the big thing I want to talk about is word of mouth, because think of all of the noise that we're all exposed to every day when we're having a genuine conversation with someone and they are making a recommendation and we respect this person. That's going to cut through the noise. Word of mouth is free. And the biggest thing is this: it is done for you, not by you. Okay. So it's much more powerful to have somebody else say, I have used this service, I have used this product, and here's what happened, compared to me saying, here's what can change in your life. I think word of mouth like has kind of fallen by the wayside because everything is all about SEO now. But we haven't changed our interaction in that regard. That really, I think it can be more powerful than ever if you help to direct it a little bit, because not nearly as many people are doing that. Don't like, even though we're saying word of mouth, like it doesn't have to be in person, that it can also, you can have people positioned to do it for you online. Okay, so let's talk about ways to incentivize this. Now, again, it's like a lot of our clients would just do it because we asked them to, but I like to incentivize it and incentivize it in the way that is that shows gratitude. Like, you're doing this for me, you don't have to. I appreciate it. What can I do for you in return? So figuring out a way to at least offer something in exchange. But think about this again as the other. There is that relatability that is very rarely gonna land when it comes from us. But when it comes from somebody else, especially somebody that's in their same social circle, etc., then it's going to have a lot of power. Okay, so testimonials. I love getting testimonials, whether it's video. Like, a lot of times I'll ask people if they're willing to do a video, but then also in their release form, I will have that, like, the video could be presented as text too. So if anybody needs help with that stuff, like the legal end of that, I, good forms and etc. One thing I recommend for the testimonials: don't just say, hey, can you tell me what you think about my business? Put a list of like kind of open-ended topics where we're gonna get feedback from them that is natural, it's genuine, it's authentic. You can tell that it's not our wording, that we didn't fake this, but also that it's not just on any topic, that we kind of know, like, okay, if I got them to talk about my customer service, right, or whatever you decide that you want to really showcase yourself with, then you could, what is your experience with the service that Ashley provides, with the kind of customer service that Ashley provides, like this. Okay, so I really like doing those. I do that pretty right. At least once a year, I'll get new testimonials. You can have affiliate, if you have a kind of program, like I have an affiliate program or on-site partners, this is another opportunity that is really great because, again, everybody's trying to do everything online. So whatever deal it is, I figure out how to structure it so that it can be mutually beneficial. And the other thing is, like, we need to be very intentional and kind of like premeditated about this, where we're going to decide beforehand, what is your level of involvement? So like with my affiliate program, it's pretty hands off. If anybody has questions or needs help, then I will absolutely be involved. But I know like a lot of other people have it where like they have monthly meetings, or they give monthly or even weekly materials to guide and direct. So I think, like, everybody, it's going to be a little different. Okay, so even if you are a one-person show, our operations should run efficiently. This is a big thing for me, that like I love, like, this is maybe one of my favorites, is helping people analyze their operations top to bottom and identify where are the bottlenecks of your time. How can we get more efficient with that? So then we'll have that clear plan. We're going to be able to analyze. And the word automate is just like such a loaded word now because of AI, but thinking of this a little bit differently, like, what kind of things can you automate in the sense of, like, when we talked about the option for like a semi-passive or passive income, like that, automating in that sense. So how can we automate, streamline, and scale? This was my goal probably like, only a few years into my career. I really got interested in scaling and I really love that. So Let's say that it's something like, let's start with the automation, hiring examples. Let's say that this is you as the person who's doing the hiring. I always create training documents, videos, demo videos, that's me, on platforms, etc., walking people through how to do it, referring them back to the documents that will have step-by-step guidelines, things that can free up my time, because that stuff is not worth my time. Even though we need those people to be able to do that, we need them to be competent at these skills, but my time is going to be better served elsewhere. Now, here's the other thing that I have found. Having this with a new hire, test them out. So it's like, okay, within 1 week, we're going to meet again in a week. Here's what I need you to complete. And then we can get on and see, was this work done, right? So it's going to really test and weed people out in a real life way, not in the interview where they say I'm reliable, I'm dependable, all of this stuff, but like actionable. I think the other side of this is like, it would be super great if we didn't have to have any human involvement in hiring, but I think we do. So it's like we need enough individual contact for success, right? But figuring out where are the areas where we can streamline it and just not have to put so much time. That's also the cadences, right? You can have cadences with the scripts. If you're doing interviews, like I always have everything ready to go before, after, during the interview. Questions are organized and ready. So that is going to take very little extra time from me or energy. All right. Well, that wraps us up with part 2, marketing. If you haven't seen part 1 yet on sales, make sure you check that out and stay tuned next week for the release of part 3, where we're going to be focused on new marketing ideas. So we've talked a lot about marketing in general. Now we're going to dial in the CPT field. What are the areas right now that we can market to with a lot of success, and how do we get started? Be sure to like and subscribe in the meantime so that you don't miss it.